समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा?
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
In Bangladesh, another Hindu man, Khokon Das, has been killed by a violent mob. ANI, among other media outlets, is reporting that Khokon Das died from his injuries after being attacked on New Year's. This even as cricketing ties between India and Bangladesh have taken a hit. Shah Rukh Khan led KKR today dropped a Bangladeshi pacer on instructions from the Board of Cricket Control. The Indian Express is reporting that the BCCI has indicated that it will now await approval from the central government before proceeding with the cricket tour of Bangladesh that was scheduled for 2026. This even as in the past few days, Foreign Minister Jai Shankar did attend a funeral memorial of Khalida Zia and indeed even met with her son. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. On the program today, there has been another death of a Hindu man in Bangladesh. ANI is reporting that Khokon Das died from his injuries after being attacked by a violent mob as the rest of the world celebrated and marked New Year's celebrations. India has expressed great concern and anger at the targeting of religious minorities, including the Hindu community in Bangladesh. Even as this grim news comes in, according to media reports, there has been another twist, another knock for the relations between India and Bangladesh amid soaring tensions. While Sheikh Hasina continues to be here in India, Foreign Minister Jai Shankar's attendance at the funeral memorial of Khalida Zia does not seem to have really eased relations between both countries. Today, Shah Rukh Khan led KKR announced that it would be dropping a Bangladeshi pacer that had been bid for the upcoming IPL. In effect, this means that after Pakistan, Bangladeshi players also are not going to be part of the IPL. The Indian Express is further reporting that the BCCI has indicated that it will need government approval before proceeding with its cricket tour of Bangladesh, which was scheduled for 2026. Is this an appropriate decision in the circumstances? After all, some engagement between Delhi and Dhaka has continued through these troubled times. Minister Jai Shankar was in Bangladesh recently to offer condolences on behalf of India after the passing of Khalida Zia. Her son, Tariq Rahman, back in Bangladesh after 18 years in exile, is widely expected to be the next Prime Minister of Bangladesh. How do we read what's happening between India and Bangladesh? This on a day, by the way, that Donald Trump has invaded Venezuela, capturing its leader and his wife. Those are the pictures that you see on your screen. While there was an official Chinese delegation visiting Venezuela, this is opening up, perhaps some might say, the pathway for China to also proceed with aggression vis-a-vis Taiwan. There's a lot of balls up in the air, including diminished world tension for what's happening in our immediate neighborhood. I want to welcome our three very special guests today. Suhasini Haider is with us. She's the diplomatic editor of The Hindu. It's always a great pleasure to have her with us. Padma Rao is with us. Padma is, of course, one of the country's senior-most foreign correspondents. Always good to have you with us, Padma. And veteran diplomat, Ambassador Veena Sikri, someone who has, of course, in her many avatars, also spent time in Bangladesh on the ground, is with us as well. Thank you very much. A turbulent 24 hours, a death in Bangladesh, a cricket twist between India and Bangladesh, a war by Trump on Venezuela. Ambassador Sikri, let's focus on our neck of the woods, our immediate neighborhood. Another death of a Hindu man now being reported by ANI, by NDTV, by Hindustan Times, that Khokon Das has succumbed to his injuries after a violent mob attacked him on New Year's. That has happened alongside Shah Rukh Khan's KKR being asked to drop a Bangladeshi pacer from his stream. KKR has issued a statement saying that it has complied with this intervention from the BCCI. What do you make of these developments? Some, like Suhasini, for example, posted on X today saying if the government is engaging with the government of Bangladesh, which we are, if Foreign Minister Jay Shankar could be present in Dhaka engaging with Bangladeshi politicians, why suddenly have we seen this shift in policy when it comes to the IPL? What are your thoughts? And of course, this tragic, tragic death, the images of Khokon Das on our screen, even as we speak about cricket, it's often counterintuitive. Many of us wondered why we had to go and play that match with Pakistan after Pahalgam, but we did, and the government drew a distinction between multilateral tournaments and bilateral ones. What do you make of what's happening?
Well, I think first of all, I would say right at the beginning that External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar's visit to Dhaka was a good gesture because he went for the funeral of Begum Khalda Zia and he handed over Prime Minister Modi's letter to Tariq Rahman, expressing Prime Minister Modi's condolences for the passing away of Begum Khalda Zia. And indeed, Begum Khalda Zia's legacy, I would say, in two parts. One part of her legacy has very much been the revival of democracy in Bangladesh, because in 1991, after 15 years of military dictatorship in Bangladesh, first President Ziaur Rahman and then President Ershad, it was Begum Khalda Zia and Sheikh Hasina who combined forces, who came together and forced President Ershad to step down peacefully and revive electoral democracy in Bangladesh. So I think, and that way, again, second time in 1996, when Begum Khalda Zia, at the end of her first term, had elections which were rejected by the people. They thought they were unfair. And then Begum Khalda Zia joined hands again with Awami League and others to bring in the caretaker system of government and to redo those elections. And then, of course, we know that Sheikh Hasina won those elections. So I think Begum Khalda Zia's legacy to democracy is important. And I really hope that in keeping with that legacy, Tariq Rahman will agree to have inclusive and participatory elections in Bangladesh. That's one aspect of it. Government of India has always dealt with the government of the day and their revival of links with the BNP. It's always been there. I mean, always we all talk to all parties, but the messages and all the important signals that India wants to continue the democratic system in Bangladesh with free and fair and participatory elections. Significantly, Dr. Jaishankar did not meet Muhammad Yunus. And that is a significant aspect because everybody else who went among the foreign dignitaries for the funeral duly called on Muhammad Yunus. Our External Affairs Minister did not. And I think that signaled India's extreme unhappiness with the way in which the Yunus regime has been completely unable and unwilling. I think unwilling here is the key word. Unwilling to control the attacks on minorities. These attacks, began right on 5th August 2024. I think Sheikh Hasina's plane would barely have left Dhaka when the mobs, and it's all a mobocracy and complete anarchy in Bangladesh, even today as we speak, the mobs targeted two things. One, they targeted anything to do with the Awami League, Sheikh Mujib's statues, any building named after him, Dhanmondi, his home, everything. The second was the minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis, and the Ahmadiyyas. I mean, merciless killing. Absolutely reminiscent of 1971. And we know that the 1971 genocide of Pakistan against the people of the then East Pakistan had been likened to the Nazi treatment of the Jews. And absolutely in that same style, merciless. And I would say that this time, 18 months, this is even longer than the 9 months of the Liberation War of 1971. And these 18 months have seen a continuation. Properties have been confiscated, businesses have been destroyed, professors have been forced to resign if they're not Muslim, and, primary teachers have been forced to resign. Every time they're told, I know people who've told me this, that their land has been taken, here's the money, take the money and go. They just want them.
And yet, not to take away from the horror, Ambassador, what you described, but yet you do believe that the engagement between Delhi and Dhaka must continue, and perhaps hoping for better times after an election does take place, if it is indeed an inclusive election, but at this moment, the Awami League is being excluded from that election. My question to you is, given that engagement is continuing through these awful times, and they are awful times, and the Hindu community, religious minorities are being targeted. Yunus has taken very long to hold these polls. He doesn't seem in control, or perhaps he's unwilling and unable both to bring order to the streets. My question to you is, do you agree with the decision of the BCCI to ask KKR to drop the Bangladeshi pacer? I know it seems very small and irrelevant given that lives are being lost and people are being killed. But these are always the tricky questions for governments to decide on. There was a furor after India played Pakistan in the aftermath of Sindoor and Pahalgam. So I just want your perspective on this.
Well, I must say that at one point, yes, you're right. Government will always deal with the government of the day. We have said clearly that there will be no substantive relations till after the elections. We have also said equally strongly that we want the elections to be free, fair, and inclusive. Only then will they be credible. So that at that level, that government to government, the minimal, as I said again, Dr. Jaishankar did not call on Mohammed Yunus. I think that will continue its own way. But you cannot take away from the popular feeling of absolute disgust, of absolute horror. And government of India has said this so often. You know, on the 8th of August last year, Prime Minister Modi, in his message of felicitation to Mohammed Yunus, actually mentioned the treatment of minorities, because even in the 4 days between 5th and 8th of August last year, the killing was so intense that Prime Minister Modi felt obliged, felt that he had to mention it. It was so serious. So I think that government has expressed its views, but right down the line, the fact that the killing in Bangladesh is now replicating what has been happening in Pakistan all these decades, which has meant that, the population of minorities in Pakistan has come down to, not only single digit, but like less than even a single digit. Like 1%, little more, little less than 1% or something. So I think that the popular horror, with the very deliberate way, Deepu Chandra Das, the way he was pulled out of the factory, handed over by his own factory, the people who employed him, the mob outside, on some trumped-up charges of blasphemy. The present Mr. Bishwas, who has been literally on his return, he's an entrepreneur, he returned from his job and he was pulled off his motorbike, yanked off, dipped in petrol, and set ablaze. What is this? It's worse than medieval. It's barbaric, and it's to send a deliberate message: A, to India, saying this is what we want to do, and B, to the other people there. And I think,
Sorry to interrupt. Let me bring in Suhasini. Suhasini, I'm going to take the cue from what you wrote on X. You believe that there's a contradiction somewhat. You didn't use that word. I'm using it. You believe that there's a contradiction somewhat in the fact that Foreign Minister was in Dhaka. Master Secretary draws a distinction between attending Khalida Zia's funeral memorial, meeting his son, and very distinctly and pointedly not calling upon Mohammed Yunus, and therefore making the point that all is not normal. Where do you see the contradiction between Delhi's engagement with Dhaka, 2 steps forward, 1 step back as it may be, and what has happened with KKR and the Shah Rukh Khan led team?
No, Barkha, you're right. It is a contradiction. I think it's more than a contradiction. It is sending very, very confused signals for where the government stands on any of these issues. Ambassador Sikri pointed out that Mr. Jaishankar did not meet Mohammed Yunus, who's the head of the interim government, but he did go to Dhaka, and he did meet with the foreign affairs advisor of the interim government, Tawhid Hussain. So I don't understand what that message exactly is. If we just want to say whatever we do, whatever the government does is correct, okay, then I'm willing to just go with that. That the government decides at different times. The Indian cricket team a few months ago played cricket with the Pakistani team, did not shake hands with them or accept an award from a Pakistani ACC chief. But External Affairs Minister Jaishankar there in Dhaka shook hands with the Pakistani leader who was representing Pakistan at that. So, I just feel that when a country of India's stature and a country of India's particular relations in its neighborhood, let's remember this is not just any old relationship. This is a relationship with Bangladesh. When the Bangladesh cricket team began in 2000, India was instrumental after that in bringing it into the test playing nations. I don't know too much about cricket, My own question is that if you are going to cut away at each of these places of the soft side of the relationship, then what is that message you're giving in terms of the actual bilateral relationship? Are you saying now Bangladeshis are not welcome to take part in the IPL? Is that going to be a rule? Or is it a response to these horrific, barbaric acts that have happened inside Bangladesh to Bangladeshi citizens? In which case, are we now creating a caveat that says when minorities are attacked in any other nation, India will not play cricket with them, or India will not accept their players in the IPL? In which case, when minorities inside India are attacked, are lynched, are killed brutally, pulled out of trucks, and beaten to death, is there going to be some kind of an acceptance that what are we going to do then? Say certain states where these things happen, those are not. I'm not being absurd here, Barkha. I'm saying, what is the line? What is the message the government is trying to give? Or is it that we wake up every morning and New Delhi has a new policy? On one particular day, we had on 16th December, as far as I remember, there was the Bangladesh Liberation Day. The High Commission held a meeting. I think Ambassador Sikri was there as well. Ambassador Sikri was not there, but other former Indian ambassadors were there. The MEA's representative, the entire desk of the MEA that deals with Bangladesh, attended that. The next day, the Bangladesh High Commissioner was called in and given a démarche over the killings inside Bangladesh. Now, my own understanding is that if a country of India's stature wants to deal with a situation with an important neighbor like Bangladesh, this is a neighbor who abuts 5 of India's states. This is a neighbor that has a land boundary of 4,000 plus. It's the longest land boundary India has. If that is a country that India wants to have a serious relationship with, or make its unhappiness clear, if it wants to say we don't like what you're doing and we are going to deal with it, then don't trivialize it. Don't make it into, okay, now we're not going to play cricket with you. Now we're not going to do this with you. But on the other hand, we will attend a funeral in Dhaka, at which point we'll meet so-and-so leader, but we won't meet so-and-so leader. I'm just saying, I don't think that there is a consistent, clear message that behoves a country of India's stature here.
Padma, which side of this do you weigh in on? Two very differing perspectives there.
I agree with parts of both what both my fellow panelists have said. Barkha, I was watching a recent show on Christians being attacked in India ahead of Christmas. That poor boy from the northeast being lynched by thugs in Dehradun, and that other guy who handed out swords to Hindus to defend themselves and said we should form Islamist-style terror groups and all that. No whataboutery here, but like Suhasini, I'm really wondering what is the message? What are we actually doing? However, I think I'd like to go a step further and say that I think what the government is doing is it has sent Minister Jaishankar to Dhaka for the funeral. That was appropriate and proper for a relationship of the size and the depth and the magnitude as the one we have with Bangladesh. Mr. Modi's letter very clearly spoke. In fact, it spoke rather glowingly of Khalida Zia's funeral, even though the relationship with India was not that, great. But he did sort of say, as I mentioned, say a few words, something about she made many important moves, including the strengthening of India-Bangladesh relations. So there have been the right noises, but there have also been silly moves like this cricketer, being sent back. I mean, I think what we unanimously agree on is that no matter which religion, law in any country must act against these instigators of violence and such unlawful acts. And it would help if the top leadership spoke out. But okay, that hasn't happened so far in Bangladesh, but what is the top leadership? I mean, even if Yunus were to offer words of condemnation or sympathy, it's hardly likely to change anything on the ground now. He is definitely on his way out.
So you don't agree? So you don't agree with the BCCI intervention in Shah Rukh Khan's speech?
Absolutely not. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, we played against Pakistan on the heels of the Pahalgam attack and Operation Sindoor. And, and all this sort of this dithering over which way to react, I think is completely unnecessary, but understandable, because I think some of those moves are more for the opticals of those moves within India. For instance, as BCCI, for instance, and I think some of them also emanate from pure greed. At least the India-Pakistan match after Operation Sindoor, it made millions and millions for all those who were involved. So I'm sorry to be such a cynic, but I think that was what really prompted them to go ahead with the match, and I don't agree with that at all. Either you condemn something or you don't. Just for the sake of money to play one of the biggest, one of the matches that a match that is one of the biggest revenue earners is certainly hypocritical. And but the moves have been made. In fact, we have even reached out to the Jamaat Islami in Dhaka. There were meetings, unconfirmed meetings, which apparently, going by the Jamaat Amir, were kept secret at India's request. So there have been moves, we're making all the right moves externally, and we're making a lot of moves that look silly from the external policy point of view, but I think they should be just laughed off as being largely for the optical effect on domestic audiences. For instance, this Bangladesh cricketer being sent home. So I, as I said, I tend to agree with parts of what Suhasini and Ambassador said.
So let me bring in Ambassador Veena Sikri here. I think it's too simplistic to say sports and politics should not be mixed, because if you look at the world in the aftermath of Russia's war against Ukraine, there have been large sporting international tournaments where Russia has not been able to participate as Russia, where Russian athletes have not been able to take part as Russians. We have a long history of countries taking positions on principles that they believe in. So I think it's too simplistic to say sports and politics don't mix. However, I do think that there's a point about consistent messaging. And I want you to respond to that, right? What are your red lines? It doesn't mean they are your red lines forever. Things can change and your red lines can change. But in the same environment with the same set of information, why is there this confusion?
No, I think let me correct one point that Suhasini said. One is that External Affairs Minister did not meet Tawhid Hussain. And Tawhid Hussain himself has put out a statement on that. There was a statement by the BSS, the Bangladesh Sanbad Sansa, the news agency, saying that Tawhid Hussain himself said it was purely for the funeral. There was no bilateral meeting, no one-to-one. So that was his explanation to his own people, saying that the reason why Dr. Jaishankar did not call on Dr. Yunus, but obviously other people did. So, that again gave the lie to what Tawhid Hussain said. I think let me come first to the thing about Mustafizur Rahman on the cricketer. I think the problem would have been not this question of whether to say yes or no at one go, but the problem would have been at every venue, whenever this KKR team was playing, there would have been chaos, there would have been demonstrations, there would have been all kinds of chaos. They would have actually ruined the whole IPL, because every time that KKR was supposed to play, whether in Kolkata or anywhere else. So I think that could have been, I'm not saying it is, I don't know the inside story on that. I'm saying it could have been one of the reasons why after the bidding for Mustafizur Rahman went to its logical conclusion and KKR took him on, but within 24 to 48 hours there was such a lot of popular discord. And I think that one has to understand, please, let's not put it just as questions of Hindus being killed or minorities being killed, but these are barbaric acts. Please understand. I mean, humanity, common man is moved by that. And if you see just see one thing from the point of view of the minorities in Bangladesh itself, I think all of you I cannot imagine that there's a recommendation that we should just ignore it. We should
who is saying that? No, nobody is saying.
In the sense that we don't take on ground that this is happening. We don't take on board that this can cause hard feelings, and it can cause a lot of civil.
In fact, I think you make an important point, and I can see Padma wanting to interject there, because some reports, Padma, also suggested that for example, in Ghaziabad, where the sort of loonies distributed swords, one of the things they did to dress up their sort of mob behavior was to say, oh, this is to protect Hindus, this is so that India doesn't become Bangladesh. There's a lot of extremist elements invoking for their own purpose. Sorry, I don't know what happened, but I'm back. You can go ahead and speak, Padma.
Yeah.
Can we unmute Padma? Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on what Ambassador Sikri just said, that we're throwing this guy out because, where there is a certain fear that there might be riots or unrest during IPL matches. So, what I don't understand, Barkha, and I have to hark back to your debate, which was excellent. What happened to law and order? Why are we so scared of the reactions of our own thugs and hoodlums and hooligans that we don't want to take the risk? It almost sounds as if we don't want to take the risk of imposing law and order. Why? What happened to the police? I mean, criminals. One minute, ma'am. I'm just saying, criminals. The guy who handed out swords, who actually went on record, and I think you played that tape where he actually calls for Islamist-style terror groups to be formed, vigilante groups to be formed and all that. Look, this is clearly a lawbreaker. And what is the police doing fast asleep? And it's pretty much the same in Bangladesh. And I think they're horrendous. I completely agree with you. Of course, all those acts are horrendous. But we must remember that the Jamaat Islami and Islamists, extreme right-wing Islamists, are certainly, they sort of hold sway in the most of Bangladesh's districts. And they control the police and the administrators.
Okay,
so
but the fact is this. I agree, but the fact is that there have been threats to KKR. There have been everybody from ulemas to sort of Hindutva groups saying, drop this man. So I think, Ambassador Sikri, I'll let you complete your point, then come to Suhasini. What you're suggesting is it could have been a practical decision as opposed to a signaling to Bangladesh. However, because nobody has spoken officially about this, we actually don't know what's happened.
No, what I'm saying is that I'm not talking of just pure law and order. And I'm sure that the police would have been able to maintain law and order by, sort of pushing back even 5,000 people. No, I'm talking about also taking on board and respecting the feelings of horror that have pervaded all of India. In fact, people are saying, why aren't we being more vocal on this? And when you talk about Jamaat-e-Islami, let me tell you that it is Jamaat-e-Islami which is controlling the situation today in Bangladesh. They are the force in power. And as a matter of fact, what has happened is that Jamaat-e-Islami would have or has been expecting that because they are the force behind the throne and because they have been able to put their own people as deputy commissioner, judiciary, academia, bureaucracy, almost everywhere, they would have thought that there would be a great surge in their popularity and that automatically they would be the shoo-in for the election. But actually that has not happened even in Bangladesh. The Bangladesh people are very religious, but they don't want a caliphate. They don't want Sharia law.
Let me bring in Suhasini. I think what Ambassador Sikri is saying is that we are in some ways underestimating the horror that is felt by ordinary Indians. A similar horror was felt when India played Pakistan after Pahalgam and Op Sindoor. And at that time, the government's reasoning was, it's not in our hands because it's a multilateral tournament. And the government may well argue the IPL is in our hands. It is in the hands of the BCCI. How would you react to that?
I don't understand that, and I will qualify that by saying, I don't follow cricket. I don't understand how all of that works. I'm making that simple point, which is, what is your policy now? What is the basic thing you are trying to say? Ambassador Sikri, I'm sorry, I don't understand the idea that the Bangladesh government is being held responsible by Mr. Jaishankar personally going to Dhaka, not meeting with Professor Yunus, although I do have a picture of him meeting with the foreign affairs advisor right here. I'm basically asking a question where I think it was completely correct. The external affairs minister went to Dhaka for I think a 3-hour visit to attend a funeral. He did not go there for a political visit. He would not have gone there for a bilateral visit otherwise, or he would have made that trip at a separate point. So I don't see why we are trying to find some way of suggesting that the Indian government is upset, but it's not upset enough to do this, but it is upset enough to allow the BCCI to let go a Bangladeshi cricket player because there is public support. I don't understand what that policy is. And if you are holding the government of Bangladesh responsible squarely for those lynchings, and I think one should hold governments responsible when there is a breakdown of law and order of the kind that we have seen in Bangladesh, then firstly, one must have the humility to accept that even in India, when somebody gets lynched to death for his religion or for his looks or for where he comes from, then that government must be held responsible here as well. My point is very simple, which is that if you want to mix cricket with this, then explain to me what the line is. Is the line that we will not play with Bangladesh now? Bangladeshi players are not welcome. Is the line we think that there may be a law and order issue and we cannot control the law and order issue, so therefore Bangladeshi players should not be there? Make that point. Third, is your line going to be that every country where minorities are treated badly, or where minorities are lynched barbarically, or where you have human rights violations, are we going to then sever sporting ties with them? Is that something that we are trying to say? Does India
No.
That visas have to be banned for people because of the treatment of minorities inside India? My question is, have a principle, then stick to that principle and explain it to me across the board. It cannot be. Today, I feel like this is the case. As I said, you have everyone saying, Barkha, that we will play cricket with Pakistan after what happened in Pahalgam because we have to, but we will not shake hands with them. But then the External Affairs Minister goes to Dhaka, he meets with the Pakistani leader over there, and he shakes hands with him. So what is the line of here? Is the line really, Barkha, that the government of the day can do whatever it wants, but the people, whether it's the sportsmen, whether it's the musicians, whether it's ordinary people, must not mix with each other, and the government has a special place and therefore is allowed to do whatever they want?
I think it's an important question. Unfortunately, I have to take last comments, so I'll come to Padma and I'll give you Ambassador Sikri the closing word. Padma, I think what Suhasini is asking is the following. Are the people to be held to a higher standard of sort of, reflecting popular sentiment, patriotism, national interest than the government? Or the converse argument would be the government of the day, by definition, will have to adjust, adapt, change, be cold, be warm as the situation demands. The problem right now is the situation hasn't changed. And in the same situation, you are seeing two different kinds of behavior according to Suhasini. What do you say to that?
No, I completely agree with Suhasini, but I understand it and I sort of absorb it differently, and it may be hypocritical, and I think it is a bit hypocritical. I think governments, all governments perhaps, but our government certainly seems to have one set of standards for external, or one set of moves for external consumption and one set of moves for domestic consumption. I just also wanted to add something to what Suhasini, she said she didn't know cricket, didn't watch cricket very well. I watch cricket a lot, and I can certainly say that it wasn't as if India was powerless about pulling out. Barkha, as you earlier said, pulling out of that tournament after Operation Sindoor. India rules the roost in the world of cricket. It rules the roost in the BCCIs, the ICC, the BCCI, where we are right on top and we're the most influential cricketing body in the world. So if we wanted to pull out of that tournament, we certainly could have. I'm not saying we should have, because I'm also a cricket buff and I enjoyed watching the match and I enjoyed India creaming Pakistan. But what I'm saying is that there are double standards, if you'd like to call them double standards. But I think that while we're making a lot of very reasonable and sensible moves on the bilateral front to Bangladesh, we're also playing parallel games and other games just for optical consumption and just for domestic consumption. Now, I don't think that the two should necessarily always match. I don't think they do in any country. But there you have it. That's what's happening. But as far as law and order is concerned, I maintain that point, which was on your debate as well. And I think Suhasini also agrees that all those events and incidents that happened in India, where were the police? Where was law and order? Where was it?
We have a whole program that we've just done on this, so I urge you all to watch it. We've gone very in-depth into these issues. Before Ambassador Sikri closes, I see Suhasini has a brief interjection. Suhasini, yeah.
Only because what I cover is diplomacy. I also want to make the point that today we have all put all eggs in the basket and said, External Affairs Minister went to Khalida Zia's funeral, met with Tariq Rahman, spoke to the BNP. There's these letters going across. Prime Minister Modi speaking about the importance of the BNP leader and all the rest of that. I think we should remember that just 7 years ago, India deported the BNP's lawyers, turned them around at the airport because we didn't want to have anything to do with the BNP. Our diplomats stopped talking to the BNP leadership. I'm just asking for some amount of consistency that is in consonance with India's stature. If we are going to become a kind of street bully who just decides on the day, I'm unhappy about this, I'm going to deal with this in this way, we lose our own stature and we lose our own consistency.
Okay, Ambassador Secretary, I'm going to give you the closing word, but I think it's also important to say we don't actually know if the BCCI has received instruction from government. I just want to, I find this whole cricket story unclear at this point. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but it's unclear. It's unclear. Has the BCCI decided this on their own? Have they decided this might be what the government wants? Is the government on board with this? We don't know enough right now.
Yes.
So,
all right. But I am not going to talk about cricket at all, because I agree with you that I'm not going to go into the niceties of whether somebody has told BCS or not. Please, I'm not going to go into that. But I do take strong objection to the way Suhasini is trying to portray, Indian government policy. I do not think that generalizations are the strength of anybody's foreign policy. Foreign policy is not based on generalizations. Foreign policy is based on the expression of national interest at a certain point in time, given a certain set of circumstances. So to point to a photograph with Tauheed Hussain and say, look, he met him. I mean, at the airport, Tauheed Hussain would have been there and he would have sort of maybe, said something to him. Tauheed Hussain is himself saying that there was no one-to-one meeting. And secondly, generalization number 2. Imagine saying the Indian government is responsible for any lynching held in India. I mean, we know that Bangladesh has a unitary form of government. We know India has a federal form of government. There are state governments which have the full responsibility for law and order. Whenever any lynching, any unfortunate incident concerning minorities takes place in India, then immediately judicial action is taken and there's an immediate report. It's not as if it goes under any, huge carpet or anything like that. More than anything, I mean, the media follows it extensively, quite correctly so. And the government is held to the government of the day, whether it's in the state, how a central government and the Prime Minister himself can be held responsible for any event happening in any small part of India at any one time is beyond anybody's imagination.
Okay.
So I don't think that can be a generalization that can be held, that any government can be held to. It's a good generalization to try and...
No, we're not talking about...
To say
that's
that
not what we're saying.
I have a foreign policy that will have one general kind of approach, very neatly wrapped up, and saying, okay, here it is, every day it is going to be. Foreign policy is conducted according to the need of the time. From the first day, our government said that we always deal with the government of the day.
I think the question, ma'am, let me be specific and not general. The question is about inconsistency. Now, I completely agree. I should say this. I completely agree that diplomacy has to adapt itself to a certain set of circumstances. When the circumstances change, diplomacy will change. There's no question of consistency over the years. No question. And that's clear.
Even
in a week, things can change. Agreed. Now, in these circumstances, right now, here and now, I think the question both of them are asking is our messaging consistent? That's the question.
No, there are two sets of questions. One is about the cricket. One is about Mustafizur Rahman. You yourself said that maybe
I don't know. I have no idea.
I also don't know. Yeah. So I'm not talking about cricket at all. But I'm talking about the general question of how to deal with the Bangladesh, what is happening there. And, to compare that, okay, 7 years ago we said this about BNP. I was there when BNP government was in power. I know we kept in touch with all of them. And we've always kept in touch with every political party in every country, because it's not a question of just wanting one part of the day. And if everybody is talking about, putting Sheikh Hasina in, all the eggs in her basket, that was a very specific aspect, because she respected India's security red lines. I know that when Khaleda Zia was Prime Minister and the BNP, the security red lines about the Northeast Indian insurgent groups were completely ignored. And when Sheikh Hasina came and they were accepted, then we had 15 years of peace and development in Northeast India. because the insurgent groups are not being supported anymore. And for 15 years, Northeast India even forgot what insurgent groups were like. And now, of course, Paresh Barua is back in Dhaka, etc., and all of that is there. So, these things have to be taken on board as they develop. We said on the first day in last July, August, I think it was August, that, we will deal with the government of the day, because with a 4,000-kilometer border and a trade which is very huge, there are day-to-day aspects that have to be dealt with. You cannot ignore them. Security at the border, people crossing over illegally, all of that. But in terms of substantive decisions, we said we will wait for the elections. And now we've said we'd like the elections to be free, fair, and inclusive. So that is a very consistent policy. But at the same time, we have completely, expressed our horror at the killings going on in Bangladesh. And there is no control.
So I was going to close, but both Padma and Suhasini want to respond. So we'll do another round of comments. Suhasini, to you first. I have a question actually to Suhasini. What you cite of the BNP, I think Ambassador Sikri is a fair question there. Between the two entities, Hasina may have been seen as somebody who was more aligned to India's interests, but today you deal with the hand you're dealt. Today, Bangladesh is dealing you the BNP card. You're not going to not pick it up from the table and play your own hand. So Ambassador Sikri is asking, is it fair of you to quote that from X number of years ago? So I just want your response to that. Yeah.
I'm in fact agreeing with Ambassador Sikri. When she was in Dhaka, she dealt with every part of the polity. So I was just making the point that it doesn't help India to cut out one part of the polity of another country and only deal with one part. Just as when we didn't deal with the BNP for 7 years, we did face a kind of backlash even from them last year during the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. But I think the larger question is, and I think we're all agreeing over there, that what is India's national interest has to be at the fore. This cannot be about making decisions on the fly without realizing what is the larger interest of India, how India is perceived in our neighborhood. And we do have a larger than life perception there. And when we are consistently seen as trying to punish a country in the neighborhood, while being kind of quiet about what our own...
You can have 2,900 incidents against minorities and you're calling it punish? I mean, I don't understand what's going on.
No, it's not about minorities. The minorities are being treated badly. There's no question about that. I don't understand.
May I please?
Okay, you're all speaking together. I let Suhasini complete her sentence, then Padma, and then...
That if we have decided that we are going to behave in a certain way, then have the consistency to go ahead. Nobody is doubting that it is wrong to treat minorities in this particular manner, to have these lynchings and nobody being held to account in this particular manner. I'm just saying that we will have to show the power of our example over here. It is not just about showing the example of our power.
Okay, Padma, briefly, if you will.
Yes,
there are also comments in the audience stream saying
that
while we must hold our government and our police to account on targeted violence against Christmas celebrations, the distribution of swords and inflammatory speeches against Muslims and all of that, you can't compare it. I'm just reading out comments from the audience. You can't compare it to the complete breakdown of a democratic order in Bangladesh, where it's an institutional breakdown. So I just want very quickly in the end your response, and then Ambassador Sikri closes. Yes.
Yeah, I need to respond to Ambassador Sikri and to Suhasini. I agree with Ambassador Sikri. The diplomacy has to be calibrated. Consistency and diplomacy don't necessarily go hand in hand. Take a look at the relationship we have with the United States, or we have had over the past 20 years, 25 years, and what it's come to today, and where it might go tomorrow. So it has to be calibrated as per individual relationships with individual governments. That's what I wanted to say. So there I tend to disagree with Suhasini's want or need for consistency. But and again, as I said, the domestic moves don't necessarily have to be coordinated with diplomatic moves. I just wanted to say to Ma'am Ambassador Sikri, it's not by asking for law and order, as we have been asking on this show and on Barkha's previous show, for asking for the police to do their job by simply arresting those who go against against the law. That doesn't mean we're blaming the Prime Minister of India or asking him to go and personally arrest them. So I don't see, what we're asking for is not for intervention by the Prime Minister. Obviously, the intervention cannot come from from that level. It's about the level of the kind of the career furthering and that over anxiety to please superiors that happens at the level of the police and the administrators. That is absolutely abysmal, and as has been shown in all those dreadfully those awful cases we had in India. Thank you.
Okay, Ambassador Sikri, I have to close. I'm giving you the mic. Yeah. Do tell us where we go from here. Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with Padma completely on what she had said. And I think, yes, law and order is vital. And in fact, in Bangladesh, one of the reasons why law and order is no longer there is because they killed all the policemen. And that is, again, one of the big horrors that nobody's talking about. But this happened, after or even during when Sheikh Hasina was the last days. They killed policemen, they burned police stations, they took away the weapons and so on. And that's, the police really hasn't got back into function there. So what I'm trying to say is that we are watching the situation very carefully. We want Bangladesh and all of South Asia to be our neighborhood first foreign policy reflects our deep interest in carrying our neighbors along. And I think for 15 years, we had a very good example with Bangladesh. It was actually, I would say, really a classical example where with the law and order, the security red lines that Sheikh Hasina respected, we got the mutually beneficial economic cooperation, and Bangladesh grew at 6.5-7% a year for 15 years. And they were ready to graduate out of the LDC status, least developed country status. They were proud of this, that they could do that in the last 15 years. And now in 18 months, it's been completely reversed. So one has to recognize that the people of Bangladesh are not happy with this at all. They are very unhappy. They are being suppressed totally by the Jamaat-e-Islami-backed regime. So all these factors have been taken into account, and I think our government is doing its best to create a policy that will bring about the change in Bangladesh, that will bring participatory elections in Bangladesh and bring back democracy.
Okay, the debate rages on. We await further information on what the policy is going to be when it comes to cricketing ties between India and Bangladesh. There's a little bit of information that remains sketchy at this moment. Talking about consistency on a completely unconnected note, you have a Nobel Prize-seeking American president who claims he's ended wars all over the world, who has just invaded another country. So I just wanted to underscore that and leave you with that thought this weekend. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sikri, Padma Rao and Sahasini Aidar. Always a pleasure. Thank you and have a great weekend, everyone. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.